All right. Hi, everyone. I am the anti-war philosophy bro for the purposes of this video. I'm talking with my friend CJ, aka Tubin, aka Chris James again, and we're gonna do our use our exercise our brilliant geopolitical minds now and solve all the world's problems because apparently there's some bad stuff happening in Israel and Palestine, and people are all mad about it, and lefties are all like pro-Palestine and anti-Israel, and righties are all pro-Israel and anti-Palestine, and none of it is surprising, and it's all very sad because terrorism and war are awful. Okay, podcast done.
Yeah, no doubt, eh? There's so many angles you could take on this too. This war's going on, and we just isn't there still another war in Ukraine?
Yeah, I was just thinking that earlier today too. There's the war between Russia and Ukraine, and now between Israel and Palestine, and I'm sure you've seen as much as me or thought as much of me as about all of the other geopolitical conflicts that this could get involved with or anything like that.
Yeah, it's interesting. We got two major wars going on. Do you know who Peter Zion is? Have you heard of that guy?
Oh yeah, he's I think I saw him on Rogan's podcast talking about the Russian-Ukraine war.
Yeah, he's a geopolitical strategist, whatever that is. It's basically he makes a bunch of money, and Fortune 500 companies make him a lot of money to dive into statistics. But he thinks that he wrote this book, and pretty much the thesis of it is that the Americans are kind of getting out of the game of dominating the oceans, like the global trade routes and that kind of stuff. So they used to patrol, all and have ships all throughout every sea and throughout the world, and they've actually kind of backtracked and pulled a lot of that away over the past couple of years. And somebody was saying that they recently just pulled out one of their major carriers out of the Mediterranean region where Israel is, and they did that years ago before the Ukraine war started. So anyway, what I'm getting at, he seems to think as the policing that the United States has been doing of the oceans for the past 30 years, as that starts to decrease, we're going to see more and more of these kind of wars pop up. Who
Oh,
knows if
okay.
that's right or not?
I hadn't heard him talk about the control of the seas aspect before, but I saw him talking about how basically the increasing collapse of globalism and quickening death of the American empire is going to lead those sorts of things like more war and conflict and that sort of stuff too.
Yeah. And I don't know if he's really right. I mean, the other day I was reading that Biden just put forth a proposal of like $400 billion or whatever to refund Israel and Ukraine. So I don't know.
Wow.
Is this all to make money for General Dynamics and Raytheon at the end of the day too? Because it
Where's the
seems like,
racket?
yeah, whenever there's a war that's going on, these companies seem to profit. And I don't know. I have a lot of questions on how this whole conflict started too. Um,
Me too, because like this whole conflict between Israel and Palestine is really complex, and I always have trouble figuring out what's going on. I pretty much like I understand it to the extent that I understand other people's opinions about it. And yeah, I mean it seems like since since I forget which one it was, but since either Israel or Palestine was set up as a Jewish state in I think it was 1947 after World War II, there have been all these skirmishes and killings and terrorism and the U.S. funding the Israeli military. I think that's been happening for at least decades.
oh
So
yeah, and then
this has been a long time coming. I think kind of like the Russian Ukraine conflict, right?
yeah, and I mean you could take this all the way back to the Abrahamic genesis of all this too,
Oh
right?
yeah, yeah.
This has literally been debated. This area has been debated for like 2,000 years. So there's nothing that we're going to say tonight that is going to solve this issue. Unfortunately, it's not like I wish it was some kind of version of John Lennon's Utopia where everybody shake hands and it becomes peaceful there, but I don't think that's going to be the case. And I honestly don't know if Israel is better running the show there or if Palestine is better running the show there. I don't know. I don't believe a lot of what's going on there. A lot of that fog of war kind of stuff, hospitals on fire and babies being beheaded. It sounds awful. And I've seen videos online. I just don't know what to make of any of that stuff yet. I kind of like to wait, you know what I mean, until all
Yeah,
the facts are straightened out. But yeah,
yeah, it's like it seems to me, and I don't know, maybe my somewhat amateur perspective on this helps me see it this way, I think. But it seems to me that it's not just the case that, Israel all bad and Palestine all good, or Palestine all good and Israel all bad. It seems like there's terrorism and there's murder and violence and rape and killing women and children on both sides. And there are people doing good things and there are people doing bad things, and there's anti-Semitism on both sides, and there's murder and terrorism that has nothing to do with anti-Semitism. And basically, it just seems like a lot of people are saying, or a lot of lefties are saying, yeah, Hamas is really bad, but Israel is still way worse than Palestine. And then righties are kind of saying Israel is still way better than Palestine. The Palestinians are way worse. And then the libertarians seem to be mostly agreeing with the lefties.
yeah, it's interesting, and it's really sad actually how the certain camps have kind of fallen in line. I was talking to my mom about this because we were talking about Daily Wire and Ben Shapiro and all those people, and I was just saying, like, okay, if you're I've tuned into the Daily Wire from time to time. I'm not like a avid watcher, but I would think that during this conflict, the Daily Wire is not the news source you should be going to. You know what I mean?
No, yeah, a lot of people treat YouTubers as news sources, which they shouldn't do.
But I think like not just YouTubers, but Barry Weiss is another example. She's not the girl I'm running to on this conflict, or
Hmm.
Batia Ungar Sargon, or
Oh, that
any of
one,
these
she
other.
was on Thaddeus Russell's podcast?
Yeah, that's right. All these people are
Right.
Jewish, right? Or like you
Okay.
flip it on the Palestinian side. Any of these people that are pro-Palestinian, like I'll dip in and I'll listen to what you have to say, but it's very tribal and it's
Oh,
very
yeah.
quick.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, it's sad how like the right has kind of sided with Israel and the left has sided with Palestine. I think that, and this is not my own original thought. I forget where I stole this from, but somebody else had mentioned that the left really likes to concentrate on minority groups that are, kind of like they're the David and the David Goliath, right? So the Palestinians here, they occupy a very small piece of land and Israel's the David. Israel's the Goliath here. They're the big, they're backed by the U.S. They have all the massive weapons. They're the big guy here. So it's looked as the left is taking this side because it's a huge oppressor versus a small group of oppressed people, which which is kind of like it's part of their ideology, or not part of their ideology, but this is very common within a left wing ideology. It's care and harm over a smaller group of people that weren't held out or weren't given the best hand to begin with. You've
Yeah.
got to protect those people, and the big guy, capitalism, white people, colonialism, they're all bad. You know what I mean? And I
Hmm.
think that
Yeah.
the right is the same. It's not colonialism. It's not this. These are terrorists, and we've got to, yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, like US funding Israel is a good thing because they're the good guys and the Palestinians are bad guys. And yeah, I mean, it really, like you were saying, it really is sad that there's all just this just expected tribalism from people and having their predictable sides on this. Like Yeah, I mean, I saw some compiled footage of what was happening the other day, and it's just, as always, horrifying. War is awful. And then, with our social media age too, like you can see this happening with the Russian Ukraine war. Of course, people say if you're like if you want to end the war in Russia and Ukraine, you're like pro Putin or some shit like that. And and then the people on the other side rightly point out sometimes that people who just are anti-war sometimes actually are uh like pro Putin, but then I'm also anti-war in terms of Israel and Palestine, and it seems like that is a really difficult situation to figure out too. I mean, obviously these situations are obviously difficult, and then like similarly to the Russian Ukraine war, like I was saying before, whether you support Israel or Palestine, you can be called an anti-Semite by the other side.
Yeah, there's a real dark question here that I was thinking of the other day, which is how much can the other side, like, okay, Israel has a right to defend themselves, correct? And
Hmm.
Ukraine has a right to defend themselves if both Russia and Hamas are attacking them, right? The question is what is an acceptable amount of retaliation, right? Because
Yeah,
I
and like
don't,
what does that mean exactly? What does defending yourselves entail? That can be a really ambiguous concept.
yeah, like if Hamas takes out 1,000 Israelis, and I know this is going to sound like really heartless, right? This conversation, but if they take out 1,000 Israelis, like, is the thinking that we allow Israelis to take out 1,000 Hamas fighters and then that's it? Because it doesn't make any sense to me that Israel is just allowed to go in there and take that body count up to like 10,000 people, which they're
Yeah, yeah,
supposedly on their way of doing.
I've seen some people point that out too, that they're like Israel is going overboard with that retaliation, like you were saying.
Yeah, and I just I don't that's it doesn't sit like yeah I struggle with that one, right? Like, okay, Israel's allowed is allowed to defend themselves. My first gut reaction to that is yes, they are, right? There's a moral instinct in me that automatically goes that. But then it gets squirrely as soon as I had that conversation in my head of what, okay, retaliation and defend themselves. What does that mean? And um the other thing that's weird about defending yourselves and just going full throttle with bombs and stuff like that is, again, back to how this all started. You have Israel, which is supposed to be one of the most highly advanced military forces in the world. They control all the cell phone towers for the Palestinians there, and they didn't know any of this was going to happen beforehand. Their border, like I was listening to, I forget where she was, but she was an Israeli Defense Force agent that used to take care of the border. And this was 25 years ago before cell phones. And she said that if a cat came to the border, they would be notified of it. And they would send out a crew of like, 5, 10 people to investigate it or whatever. And the border was apparently penetrated up to 15 times in this latest front. So how does that
Wow.
happen for a country that's supposed to have the best defense ever, right?
Good question. I mean, like, I mean, this is just my guess, but I wonder if some of that is due to the fucked up manufacturing process due to the profit motive for the US military, because they're selling a lot of weapons to Israel. And I heard before, for example, how the fact that they make more weapons than they need, and then they make old and obsolete ones, even though they have all this money, because the newer ones are more expensive to make. So some of the stuff that they have is like unreliable and shitty. But I've heard also apparently that the weapons and that kind of stuff that the Palestinians have is even worse. So I don't know.
Yeah, I heard they do. You're right. I heard they recycle like a little bit, like parts of their bombs and resend them back over there and stuff. I just what's weird to me is okay, your border is penetrated 15 times, and I like government being incompetent. I can totally get on board with that talking point. You know, like the Israeli military just sucks. They were sleeping at the wheel that day. You know, this happened on 9/11 with the fighter jets not being, you know, all that stuff could happen. There could be human error. They didn't know what to do there. I just think that, okay, if for me, if we're playing world police here for a minute, and
Team
which I
America.
never, which I never want to do, right? I don't think, like, you know, this idea of like one world government should is horrible. But let's say this is in play. Israel should not be allowed to retaliate the way they did if their government is so incompetent that they just allowed them to walk in, pretty much.
Yeah, well said. Yeah, I agree.
And if it is that, we should, I don't know, we should have an investigation first before. It just seems really weird to me that, like, why would Hamas do that too? That's another question I've been throwing around in my head. Why this is a suicide mission for Hamas? They knew that Israel's going to attack and kill a bunch of their women and children and civilians. Why would they send paragliders, 500 people into? I don't know.
Yeah, it's a good question.
And I get religious fundamentalism and jihad and all that. Okay, sure, but it just, I don't know, something just doesn't add up about this whole story. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, it's really interesting to think about what the motivation must have been behind that, especially like you mentioned the fog of war, for example. People's thinking gets foggy, and we don't do, like, as you know just as well as I do, of course, that people's decisions don't always make rational sense, to say the least. So, I mean, something like Hamas attacking Israel could have been some massive mistake, but I mean, something of that scale seems like it was well planned out, but maybe it wasn't as well thought out as they thought, or who knows? I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. Somebody was saying, I'm really bad at this because this is what I do. I went and I listened to everybody's opinion on it, from like Dave Smith to Glenn Greenwald to, you know, you name it. There's about 10 different podcasts I digested just to hear what everybody's opinion on. So when I say is somebody, is because I heard this somewhere on a podcast. I just can't remember where I heard it.
Okay.
But somebody was saying that up to like 5 Hamas people knew about the attack, and that was it. That's why it was so kept in house. And
Oh,
yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm sure that's if the debate is the Israeli Defense Force just dropped the ball on this one, and then I can get on board with that. I just again, with this stupid misinformation social media age that we live in, I have no idea what to believe on any of this stuff, right? So
hmm, yeah, especially something like this, that this is an issue that comes up a lot, but I haven't really researched it that much. So yeah, I mostly just as you do, just kind of listening to other people's opinions and see what they agree and disagree about, and what their political affiliation is and how much that impacts it, along with their how tribal they are about it and everything like that.
yeah, nobody's really applied moral foundations theory to any of this stuff either, which is I don't know. Again, that goes back to, like, Republicans siding with Israel and Democrats siding with Palestine.
Yeah, those are the perfect examples of moral foundations theory.
Yeah, the other thing that's I don't know. I'm not picking sides here, but I will say that it is kind of like, not rude. Well, yeah, it is rude, but like, for there to be pro-Palestine rallies this close after an attack. Now I get it. If
Oh
you're
yeah, I
viewing,
just barely I saw someone posting about that. I forgot about that. Yeah, that's not good. That would be like someone having like a pro Al Qaeda rally after 9/11.
yeah, and I mean, like, I'm not anti-protest. Like, protest whatever the fuck you want. I don't
Oh
give a
yeah, of
shit.
course. Yeah.
I'm just thinking that if you're gonna do that, there should be like a common courtesy, like, week or two that you before you get out there with your flags. I don't. It's just, I don't know. It's such a hot topic, and for people to, I had people in my neighborhood here with Palestinian flags on their cars driving around.
Oh, were they the same ones who had Ukrainian flags on their cars?
Yeah, probably. They probably had that. That meme. Have you ever seen the meme where the NPC character, he takes the cartridge of the Ukraine flag and then he puts in like the Israeli flag or whatever?
No, that's
Oh
hilarious.
man. Yeah, it's like the current thing, whatever it is, the cartridge goes in its brain and it's just yeah, there's a few good memes out there on that. But
Oh yeah, of course.
that's another thing, man. It's like how long or um why does this keep happening? Like why does this the next like this is the current thing right now. The last thing was like Ukraine. Before that, it was like I don't know the
COVID?
trials of Trump, COVID. Yeah, you can add that to the list. There's been so many things though. Everything is like every time I get on social media, there's always a cause or there's always like some kind of like you know like this. How long is this going to go on too? What's the next thing? You know. Um,
Yeah, and then like people have already somewhat forgotten about Russia and Ukraine because the newest hottest thing is Israel versus Palestine, right?
yeah, it's weird, and it's weird that everybody they have to give their opinions. They have to screenshot other people's like miraculous quotes that's going to solve the end of the day and show all their people. Yeah, they
Yeah.
have to show. It's weird how people just jump onto this thing, and I
Yeah.
know what it is. It's acceptance within your own tribe. You're showing people.
Oh yeah, for sure. I saw so many people doing that on Twitter too, posting these rousing political speeches. So I don't remember whether I did or I just thought about posting just literally verbatim, insert rousing political speech here.
Yeah, the the political opinions are endless, which is like that's to be expected when it's online. But yeah, it's gross. I don't know. It's gross, but it's not as gross as like seeing all these images of like women being dragged in jeeps, half mutilated. Like I sometimes worry like there's soldiers that came back from Vietnam that had PTSD from looking at dead bodies all day, and here I am fucking scrolling through X looking at all this gross shit that I shouldn't be looking at. I wonder if like
Oh wow. Yeah, I don't do that. I
X.
just I've seen some news clips, but I haven't gone like looking for that kind of stuff.
Well, yeah, I'm not looking for it like specifically. I see it in my feed. Like I saw, you
Okay.
know, the day of the rave that was going on and all that footage. Yeah, it's just I wonder if that's really good for our psyche. Like I wonder if
Probably not.
probably not. We're not supposed to. Human beings are not really meant to be looking at dead bodies. Um, well,
It's
we could look at dead bodies.
probably one of the main reasons I would guess why people get PTSD. I mean,
Yeah,
actually killing people and watching them die and stuff, that's probably similar to watching people die. I don't know.
yeah, it's not a good thing. Like, not a good example, but it's not. It's like eating McDonald's every day. I would guess, assume for your brain. Like, I
Hmm.
used to work at palliative care, and there's a certain, um, I don't know, the nurses that worked there. There was a certain humor they had about them, which was like really, it was really dark, but it was somewhat needed when you're working in that kind of
Oh
always
yeah, like
continuously seeing
gallows humor because you're seeing dark shit all the time. Yeah.
all the time. That's right. Yeah. Um, and it's not good for it's not good for your psyche. Similar to like, yeah, eating shit all day is not good for your health. I would assume that seeing dead bodies on Twitter all day is not really good for your mental health either. And
Yeah.
it just, I don't know, for me, I can somewhat, um, I don't know, not that I'm desanitized from it, but I can somewhat know that this is like war and not get too emotionally attached to it. But some people I can just imagine seeing this conflict on social media and just be like, fuck Hamas or fuck Israel, these
Yeah, I
fucking
know.
guys. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm like I think I do, and I think when we talked before, you were saying that you had better control of your social media use now too. I'm glad that I don't pay anywhere near as much attention to social media and 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 like YouTube political commentators and stuff as I used to, and it's
Yeah.
like lifting a weight off of your shoulders. I can imagine all those people on Twitter just saying like, "You support Israel? You're a Nazi. You support Palestine? You're a Nazi."
Yeah. No, I've been pretty good at staying off, but I'm not gonna lie, it still gets me every time the next current thing pops up, whether it be, you know, COVID, George Floyd, January 6th. I am checking what's the latest thing. You know what I mean?
Oh
I do
yeah,
get to a point.
I usually like even if I'm just scrolling through my feed and I see, oh, there are 10 videos on this one subject. Okay, well, I'll watch these two.
Yeah, I do usually get to a point where I'm like, oh wait, Chris, you gotta get the fuck out of here. This is just nonsense. And then eventually I throw my phone. But it's still every time one of these big global events happening, I gotta get out of that. You know what I mean? Which I don't think it has. It's hard. It's because just you want to know, right? I feel like I'm always one of those people that kind of still wants to know what's going on in the world, even though most of it is just cultural, more bullshit and nonsense anyway.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, it's fear of missing out. You don't want to be
it's
behind everyone. You want to be on the up and up and not behind on everyone.
Yeah, it's fear of missing out. But for me too, I'm a curious person, and I'm just I want to know what's going on. You know what I mean?
Mhm. Yeah,
Even though,
that's why I used to be addicted to watching YouTube videos all day.
yeah, I still have that. Well, not I don't watch them. I see. I subscribe to YouTube Premium, so I can listen to YouTube videos all day like a podcast. But still, like YouTube is it's up there as far as what I consume social media wise for sure. Um,
Mhm. Oh,
yeah,
if we qualify that as social media, I definitely use that way more than any other social media.
yeah. I guess it would because you can comment on it, right? So that's why I've heard other people put YouTube in the social media box. So
Okay.
yeah,
Hmm. So, I don't know, were there any specific takes on this Israel Palestine situation that you thought either made a lot of sense or made very little sense? I think, like, to me, as I was saying, it's just if people are just having these polarizing, oversimplified views, that's what impresses me. But I haven't really seen that much nuance from anyone yet, really, on this issue, other than I've seen maybe a few lefties saying you don't have to be pro-terrorism to be anti-Hamas, but also anti-Israel. And then I might have seen a few conservatives saying something similar in the opposite direction, but I've seen barely any nuance at all on this. I mean, what about you?
no, I haven't. I mean, I have seen a few people take a nuanced approach to it. I watched the Sam Harris and Eric Weinstein on trigonometry, them do that whole talk.
Oh, I didn't know. I should watch that. I didn't realize that had happened. That would be interesting.
Yeah, it was. I mean, like
I'm
all
not the
four of those
biggest
guys.
fan of
I know.
trigonometry.
Me
I'm not the
neither.
biggest
And like,
fan of trigonometry or Sam Harris anymore, but I still kind of like Brett Weinstein. I mean, not Brett Weinstein, Eric Weinstein. Wait, did you say
yeah,
Brett Weinstein?
no, I said it's Eric.
I thought you said Eric. Okay.
Yeah, I totally agree. Not that I hate any of those guys. I just,
Oh yeah.
for me, the trigonometry guys, it's just been like, why? Why are these two goofs like the most popular UK podcast you got?
I don't get it.
I don't get it
Every one
either.
of their videos is like, bro, did you know wokeness bad? I know, isn't wokeness bad?
Yeah, it's like so cliche. It's bad editing. That Constantine, the Russian guy, he's decent, but the
Yeah.
other guy is just so I don't know. That is not he's not a likable. Well, he's a likable guy, but he's just like I don't know. He's like you look at Joe Rogan, right? Joe Rogan is a personable guy. He asks good questions. He's deep. You know what I mean? He's a good podcast host, and there's other examples of good podcast hosts. But the trigonometry guys are like one of the top UK podcasts, and I don't get it at all. Like they're not controversial at all. They're not even like I guess what it makes them good is that they take somebody like Eric and Sam, who often is highbrow, way up here intellectually to all the normies, and they are able to take what they say and dumb it down a bit. That's where they lie, I guess, trigonometry.
I think, I mean, if I had to guess, I would say that probably one of the big reasons that they're so popular is that there's like there's a huge anti-woke cottage industry, which has become just as big of a tribe as the woke cottage industry tribe, I would say, like going too far overboard against the woke stuff sometimes, like I don't know, like Jordan Peterson comparing the doctor who did Elliot Page's transition surgery to literal actual Nazis during World War II, or things like that. Or Candace Owens saying that cancel culture is literally the same as slavery.
Yeah, yeah, I don't. Yeah, there's grifters out there that are they're just doing it better. Like I would even say that Dave Rubin does a better podcasting job than the trigonometry guys. I don't like he's more personable. There's a humor there. There's a way that he plays it off as he's dumb, but he still does. He asks good questions. But, the trigonometry guys, I don't get it at all. And I don't get like they seem like they're backed by money. Like who are backing these goofs? It's like is
I
another
think I
question.
might have seen. I don't remember whether it was with them or with at least one person. I think they have like at least a few really rich contributors or something like that. I don't remember.
Yeah. Well, even though their podcast is shit, I still digested a majority of
Hmm.
it.
I
It's
wish I could get a huge cult following based on my poor production value. That'd be awesome.
yeah. Well, for them, they got the guests. Like Sam Harris had a viral clip go on last time he was on
Oh
trigonometry
yeah,
where he
I
talked
remember that
about
one. Yeah.
where was it? What did he say that
He
was
was saying
controversial?
something like oh yeah, he was saying even if Hunter Biden was hiding dead children in
Yeah,
his
that's right.
basement, that still wouldn't be anywhere near as worse than anything that Trump has ever done. Something crazy like that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the other weird thing is like the trigonometry guys took that 20-second clip and put it up there like, hey, look at what Sam said that's fucking retarded on our podcast, right? And then that went viral. And then he goes back on the trigonometry podcast like 2 months later. That's good for him. Like awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, that
You
shows
know,
humility. It does. Yeah.
it does. And it's weird to me that a lot of I don't know, I would never if I was Sam, I would never the trigonometry guys would call me again, I wouldn't be like, "Oh, yeah, I gotta go back on there." I guess they had Eric Weinstein on there, but again, back to my original point, how are these guys getting these fucking big names? How are they able to get Sam Harris and Eric Weinstein on their
I
podcast?
don't know. I mean, I don't know even more so how they got these big name guests back in the day. Because I mean, now they're more known and they've been on big podcasts, so people know about them. But I don't know how they did before. I wish I knew how they did. That would be nice to know.
Yeah, I don't get it. Anyway, not to shit on those guys, the whole podcast here, but so they did Sam and Eric, and it was decent takes there. Their take was more like trying to solve this from a religion. Well, Sam's take was more like a religious. He sees this more as the Palestinians and the Arabs being more violent, and somebody's got to take control of that state and be the police there.
So he's
The best,
pro-Israel.
I guess
I
so.
think
And
I
there's a
seem to
but
remember him saying something about that before. And he has some sort of like really oversimplified anti-religious militant atheist view on it, something like that.
well, he's against jihad, which he views as the Palestinians. Obviously he's not a fan of Islam. So I think he views Islam, and he's written a number of books and done a bunch of podcasts on this. He's famous from that, like he got famous from that whole Ben Affleck thing on Bill Maher about Islam. So he's obviously doesn't view Islam as the peaceful religion that it kind of touts itself to be. So um, I guess he would side with Israel, but there was more in that podcast they were talking about yeah, what side um, should have control in that region, what's going on. And I watched the whole podcast, but it became more of about, hey, look at my talking point. My talking point is really good, and my talking point is really good. It became more about like a battle of like, look at how
Talking
good my
points?
talking look at how good my talking point is versus like, actually getting to something of uh let's
Conversation?
try to or a conversation, let's try to figure this out. What's going on here in Israel? You know what I mean? It was more like, hey, look at how big my balls are, or hey, look at how big my balls are, which is fine. So that one was okay. Uh yeah, I've listened to so many people on this. The best one I honestly thought was Glenn Greenwald and Dave Smith. They had a conversation about.
Oh yeah, I think I saw that on my feed yesterday, but I haven't watched it yet. I've been meaning to. That'd be interesting.
Yeah.
What do you think? What did you think about that one?
Well, I think that one was definitely the most nuanced by far. Both Dave and Glenn don't side with either one. Their conversation was more like that conspiratorial, but they had like a 30,000 foot lens view on the whole thing. Like, there's something going on here. Why are we being told this? You can throw a dart on any conflict in Africa going on right now, and there's 1,000 people dead. Why aren't we concentrating on that? Why is this the big thing right now? More of the stuff we were talking about a little bit earlier with why are why are we being shown this war to participate in, and are we being kind of led into this war through propaganda, right?
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah, I mean I definitely have some disagreements with Dave Smith and libertarians, but I tend to agree with libertarians on war because they tend to be very anti-war. And yeah, he's talked about. I've seen Dave Smith, bring up that point before about like how, for example, the media never talks about the genocide in Yemen. What is it? The Saudi-backed genocide in Yemen? Yeah, I think
Yeah,
American sells weapons to Saudi Arabia to commit the genocide in Yemen, and there are wars going on in Somalia and all sorts of other countries that most people probably don't even know about.
yeah. Funny enough, he brings that exact same point up again in this podcast, where he's saying like, yeah, they didn't talk about this war in Yemen, but they will have no problems talking about the war in Israel Palestine. Um, And that's more because like the Americans have more to gain financially by being involved in Israel Palestine. They're funding pretty much both sides, whereas Yemen conflict, they're probably getting more. They're getting some weapons from the United States, but I would think a conflict like that is getting more weapons from like a Russia or a China, one of those great countries. Yeah,
Hmm.
there are a lot of perspectives. Nobody has a good solution though. Nobody has any really good. Like, I didn't hear anybody with like, okay, this is what we got to do. Israel's got to take over this spot. They got to annex this land to that. Nobody had a well thought out plan on how they did that. The unfortunate thing by listening to a majority of people talk about this Israel Palestine is it's listen to me talk about this. I'm awesome. This is my fucking point. You should side with
These
me on that. You know
people,
what I mean?
these people are fucking idiots. Don't listen to them.
Yeah, it becomes that game of like, yeah, I know everything about this. They should do. I don't know. It's just and not a lot of good, constructive, good faith arguments and ideas are being put forth on how to solve. And maybe, again, this has been going on for almost fucking 2,000 years. Maybe there's not a good solution to this since you have both tribes that literally just want to slit each other's throats.
Yeah, and I've seen. I'm sure you've seen this as much as I have. People argue adamantly either for a one state solution or two state or three state or something. I don't know, man. I've heard convincing arguments for all of those solutions. I really don't know what would be a good decision. It seems like there are many pros and cons to any of those options, and there's so many moving, constantly shifting complex factors because that's how reality works.
Yeah, I don't know either, man. Should we just like level out the Iron Rock and that whole Jerusalem, and then call it a day. Evacuate everybody, level out all the buildings because they seem to
Oh,
care
okay. I
about
thought you
fucking.
meant mass genocide all those people.
No, not mass genocide. I mean the actual like you tell everybody to get out of there. Then we'll flatten everything and start anew. We'll
Hmm.
divide it right in half and get out our measuring tape and say you can have this half, and because I think it's really divided right now. That you got Gaza over here, you got a West Bank over here, you got little pockets of where they're allowed to stay and allowed to go, and I think a majority of that it's all based on religion, right? The Temple Mount or the dome and all of that is controlled by Israel, and that's off in this section here. And then you have the West Bank, which is adjacent to that, but Palestinians can go in there. Israelis can go in there too, but you're pretty much guaranteed to lose your life if you go in that section. It seems like very complicated, and it seems like they got a mosque over here that's protected. They've got a church over here that's protected by the Christians. And there's a mix. You have Arab Jews that are also which are like both sides, and um, okay, here you're muted.
Oh, sorry, I forgot I had myself muted.
There you go. Yeah, I
Yeah,
hear you
yeah.
now.
How do you deal with that? I didn't even think of that. Like Arab Jews, they're on both sides, and we know race is like a slippery, socially constructed concept. So Jewish can be considered a race too, and like what side you take on this issue probably depends even more so on your upbringing and your environment in this case than in other situations, I bet.
Yeah, I don't know. The only one I know, Gad Saad is like a Lebanese Jew, and
Yeah, I haven't seen his takes on this. Have you?
he's seen. I haven't heard his takes. I saw a headline for one of his podcasts because I subscribed to him, and it looked like it was siding with Israel,
Okay.
which I would think if I know his story, he left Lebanon and moved to Canada because yeah, there's a conflict going on there. So for him to be anti-Palestine would kind of make sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
Again,
Yeah.
I don't. There's a lot of moving parts and it's complicated, like all these things. I don't know the exact history there, but yeah, it'd be interesting to know where some of these people that have both Jewish and Arabic blood or whatever, where they side on it. And there's some probably people that are pro-Palestine but not pro-Hamas. There's some people that are just pro-Hamas only, and yeah, it's I don't know. Yeah, religion, eh?
Yeah. Yeah, that's obviously like religion is, as we've been talking about, and as you were saying, Sam Harris was talking about, it is an important piece of this. But I mean,
Mhm.
obviously, political factors, history. You were talking like what race you are, where you grow up, how that affects your upbringing, and then that brings us back to what religion you were raised in, whether you were raised in Israel or Palestine, if you're what type of race you look like, if you're an Arab Jew, if you're a Jewish who looks more Jewish than Arab, or if you're an Arab Jew who looks more Arab than Jewish. I mean, there's so many factors to think about, and yeah, it's just annoying that people are so sure of themselves all the time. I want to, when things like this happen, I like to, at least at some point, read books about them because I think that's the better way to understand what's going on. But usually you can't, if you kind of have to wait for a book to come out because that's when you know more facts about it.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think all you can do is like myself when this conflict happened. I knew a little bit about the history, but I did go back and read and watch a few YouTube videos on like the Abrahamic history, like going way back of how this kind of all started and how the Ottoman Turks kind of ruled that empire before that, and then um, how the land was given back to them essentially after World War II. That kind of stuff is um, yeah, it's good to know exactly what's going on there. But as far as what's going on there now, it's yeah, who knows? Yeah,
I was
just
just
it's so
thinking, I'm glad. I was just thinking it'd be so awful to be living there in that situation, and I'm so glad that I am not. And it's so awful that people have to deal with that shit.
Yeah, it's one of the other things too. It's one of those spicy things. It's always been like a spicy thing. Are you are you pro-Israel? Are you pro-Palestine? Are you a Zionist? They call it or whatever.
Yeah,
But if you like, abortion is another one of these things too. And we're not going to talk about abortion. That's another podcast in general. But this is another topic where there's so many layers to it, and you can have a debate on. You could be pro-life, you could be pro-choice, you could be, pro-life up to a certain point. You could be against third trimester abortions. You could be against, you know what I mean. You could be against rape only uh, abortions or whatever the case may be. There's so many layers to it, and nobody's ever solved this. This is why we have the debate ongoing still. But when these things ever happen, like Roe v. Wade, when that happened in the United States, everybody had their hot take. Here's my, 2 cents, and this is going to change everything. And the wind blew by, and now we're on Ukraine happened when everybody gave their hot take there, and now we're giving our hot takes on this. I don't know. Does anybody really stop? And does any progress made after these debates, or just people verbal diarrhea in their points, and then we move on to the next hot topic?
I think, I guess the best you can hope for from, listening to podcasts and watching people's conversations about this is to learn more about what's going on, because you're obviously going to learn more opinions, and I guess you can learn people's opinions about what's going on, and then see how their opinions vary and differ. But like you said, you have to pay attention to a lot of different sources for that. And yeah, probably there's not any real sort of solution or anything from any of these conversations that are happening about it. I mean, I haven't even seen that many people talk about what a possible solution could be. But I mean, I don't know. Have you seen Peter Zehan or someone like that talk about what a solution might be for this?
No, Eric Weinstein had a few ideas where, yeah, you pretty much, um, yeah, you divide the land into, a spot where they both tribes can live peacefully. But yeah, again, like it's just like a utopia vision. Again, there's so much going on there. I don't understand how. I don't think it's as easy as like asking. There's millions of people that live in this area, right? To even get like 10,000 people in a condo or apartment building to just get up and move to a certain land when all their family is there. These aren't like easy decisions. I know we can do that in the abstract from here in North America and no problem solve the day from there, but boots on the ground, it's not as easy as just dividing the land into two. So I haven't heard any good solutions from anybody about this. They're all bad solutions. Like Ben Shapiro's solution is for Israel to control the whole entire land and eliminate Hamas.
Holy fuck. That's gonna
I
lead
just
to all sorts of innocent people getting killed, man.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it's just yeah. I do. The only thing we know for sure is that this is just gonna like all those people that have passed away, brothers, sisters, mothers, fathers, that's just going to leave a hole in the next generation, a hole that's like very dark and very, you know, um, but yeah, like if you were a Palestinian and your brother or sister was just killed by Israel, it's not, you're not, this isn't going to be forgiven until like it's never going to be forgiven, right? It just makes matters so much worse. It's yeah, I don't know how to explain it, but like yeah, it just like all those people that we went and bombed. And I say we, I don't know why, but when 9/11 happened in the
America,
United States,
America.
when America went in and just and bombed like Iraq, Iran, and Gulf War and all that kind of stuff, um, like that just leaves behind. Nobody likes Americans over there for like generations to come, right? Because they've had family members that were probably killed
Yeah, it
innocently.
Yeah, it creates more terrorists, as I think Dave
Yeah, it
Smith
creates more
says that
terrorists.
too, right? Yeah.
Yeah, you're gonna have a bunch of people that have gonna have grudges on against the Israelis for taking out their apartment complex or whatever, and that's gonna get passed down to their kid, and yeah, yeah, doesn't get
Exactly.
any better.
You killed my father, you're the enemy. Makes sense from that
Mm,
perspective.
yeah, yeah, and I think that's
So I
what's
guess we
shitty about
can't
this.
figure out this. I guess we can't figure out the solution for this Israel-Palestine conflict. Maybe
Well,
we're the only people who will admit that, though.
it would be education in the region for everybody to be as nuanced and
Education is
open
usually a
to.
good education is usually a good way to at least attempt to solve problems.
For sure, but in that region, it's just going to be biased education. Like Israelis would teach their people their their education, and yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, education isn't education if it's indoctrination.
yeah, exactly. I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Somebody's
I
got to
just
take
hope
over that
that
territory.
and I'm sure a lot of people were having these thoughts and talking about this already, but I was having these, probably somewhat paranoid thoughts about how, man, there's these two wars that started within fairly short periods of times. I hope that's not going to lead to other wars starting. Like, I don't want this sort of wars starting in short periods of time to increase. That could lead to really terrible shit.
Yeah, like my gut says, I want to lead towards like if we could have like the United States, Canada, Britain, and just all these countries and come together and say, okay, this is what we're going to do. Somebody's got to take control of this country other than the Israelis and the Palestinians. Maybe if it was like a third party, like a neutral. The problem is like I don't want any, I don't trust any neutral government to come in there and take over the region as well. Or I'd be very skeptical about that because obviously leads to corruption. That leads to a whole bunch of negative things. And would it be any more peaceful than it is right now? At the end of the day, probably not. Right. So, but yeah, it would be nice. Um, like if the neighboring countries there, Egypt, Jordan, if they um, somehow formed a coalition or alliance to like an Arab police state or something like that to enforce that region that's above the laws of the Israelis and Palestinians, giving them all equal access to food, water, shelter, voting rights, all that kind of stuff. But again, guys lighting each other with bombs and going into a supermarket is still going to happen even if that area is taken over by a third party government outside of Israel or Palestine. So again, there's no like John Lennon utopia where everybody gets out of there
Of course.
and
And as anti-war as I am, uh, in terms of utopia, I don't I hope, but I kind of have really extremely strong doubts that it's ever going to be the case that there is actually world peace and there are no wars happening in the world.
yeah, or it's going to be a very 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 long time until
Yeah,
that happens
yeah,
in that region.
yeah.
Because Steven Pinker
That
talks
is,
about like even like if you read Better Angels of Our Nature, 200 years ago we were all killing each other. We were having we were hanging people in town squares for
mhm.
stealing and shoplifting bread. Um, not too
I
long
think
ago.
one interesting aspect, though, of that argument that I thought was interesting is, you remember Robert Sapolsky?
Yeah,
Yeah, in his book called Behave, he talks about Steven Pinker's argument in his Better Angels of Our Nature book, and he says that basically he's critiquing specifically the part of Steven Pinker's argument in which he's talking about how there was just rampant war throughout humanity for all this time, and Robert Sapolsky was saying that since Steven Pinker had written this book, that more archaeologists and anthropologists had studied this, and it seems like a lot of what was interpreted in as war between hunter-gatherer society before was mostly two hunter-gatherers fighting each other to the death over a contest for a female.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
mean, it's still, I think Steven Pinker's overall point still seems kind of true to me. I just think it's not as simple as this whole, like, either Thomas Hobbes pre-civilization humans was life was nasty, brutish, and short, or it's like this Rousseau perspective, civilization is bad, it makes everything worse.
Yeah. I don't know. I agree with you. I think Pinker's. There's probably, yeah, you could probably split hairs in that book and go through, and some things are not accurate there or presented without context. But I think his overall thesis as human beings have become less barbaric, less violent over time, still kind of holds true, especially in the West, right? Like us, the British, the Americans. Well, who knows about the Americans, but a majority of like democratic nations, Sweden, Finland, have become Netherlands. They've become less violent than they were before in their history, and that took time, education, that took a shift in culture. And that could possibly happen with new technology, new generations that form in Israel and Palestine. It's never formed in the Middle East in my lifetime, and yeah, well, and I'm not just shitting on the Middle East, man. You can go to Africa, you can go to like some places in Indochina where shit isn't really, democratic there. It's run by, like, look at North Korea, right? There's still places on the planet that are still run very violently, very authoritarian, very so it's not all good, but if you were to take the overall number of all those countries, it's better than what it used to be, 100, 200 years
Yeah.
ago.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I think that's mostly true. I don't know why I just had this random thought though, but I wondered sometimes too if you know, maybe it's similar to this idea of drones, for example. Maybe it's not good to be disconnected from the person that you're killing by so much, and maybe it was better when people were killing each other with swords and spears instead of guns. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know about that one either. They say that, like, during the Civil War era was the worst because they didn't have, well, guns were just starting out during the Civil War battle, but
Oh yeah, the muskets and blunderbusses, I think.
yeah,
Yeah.
most people died by the sword during the Civil War, which is horrible because you got stabbed and you saw the guy that killed you literally walk away or still survive standing over you for hours somehow.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Being
Whereas
the
if you're
person
shot
who
in the head,
was killed probably was way worse too. Yeah.
yeah, for sure. Whereas if you're shot in the head during World War II, you probably died instantaneously. You had no idea who shot you. If it was a bomb that came your way, you had no idea who launched that. So yeah, the gruesome killing of war during the Civil War was more, yeah, gruesome and worse than. Although World War One, man, was no trench warfare was
Yeah,
no.
like trench warfare and all obviously like the Vietnam War with napalm and other chemical warfare and also all sorts of the terrible shit that happened in World War II. I mean, I think it just matters. I think it just depends on how you measure the atrocities. But I mean, we also, I mean, there probably were way more massive conflicts back farther in history. Although maybe not World War II or something. That might be at least one of the biggest wars in history. But as far as I know, there used to be like a lot more massive wars with enormous armies, and like if you're talking about the Mongolians, for example, Genghis Khan and the Mongolians, like if you compare what he did and how much destruction he reaped upon the earth, he probably killed a lot more people than, I don't know, maybe even the number of people who died in World War II. That might be a lot more, but I don't know.
No, it's a lot. Like apparently he changed the carbon footprint of China that he
Right.
killed so many.
No, the whole world.
Yeah, the whole world. So
Yeah.
and the DNA from the amount of people that he raped and impregnated, apparently like Mongolia is there's a certain percentage of their population that has his DNA.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember hearing
Um
about that.
yeah, so it's totally brutal. Will we ever get to a point where Israel and Palestine, North Korea, places in Africa, places in South America are all like totally peaceful and democratic like it is in Europe? I mean, I don't know. I don't even know if it's that really democratic and peaceful in those places anymore, right? Like, yeah, a lot of those
Yeah.
places are just over flooded with like here in Canada, we our population grows by just immigration only. We don't really it doesn't grow with our own population anymore. So we'll get to a point where those places are just yeah, I don't know. Now I'm getting silly, but yeah.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's I mean, it's hard to avoid thinking about what could happen in the future with if various aspects of all these situations progress. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah.
don't know.
All right. Well, I guess we kind of given our opinions on stuff. Obviously, we've given our expertise analysis from our scholarly knowledge. And
Well, I hope I didn't really give too many points. I mean, God, you should not be listening to me about this fucking war at all. Not that I, like I said, I just know it's complicated, and I just, yeah, I guess if anything, we know what kind of questions to be asked, or we
my
don't.
utopian solution is the one that Joe Rogan used to have but doesn't have anymore, which is fly a plane over Israel and Palestine and drop a massive amount of psychedelic mushrooms.
Yeah, maybe that's it, or just flood a whole bunch of, yeah, like cocaine, drugs, and into that region and see what happens. Throw a big party there. I don't know.
Yeah, big party.
Yeah.
That reminds me of that story of I think it was in World War II. It might have been World War One when you probably heard about this about the two sides of soldiers stopping fighting each other on Christmas Day to play a soccer game, and then they went back to killing each other the next day.
Yeah, apparently that happened a few times. Apparently it happened, they were having I forget what it was, like wolves or deer or something like that were also getting involved in the trenches, and they had to stop one day and hunt and kill,
Oh
like,
yeah, because
animals.
wolves were killing a whole bunch of soldiers in the trenches. Yeah, I heard
Yeah,
that
that's right,
too.
or they're eating the dead bodies or something like that, so they had to, like, stop a day to kill them too. Apparently, yeah, that happened a few times during the war, but, yeah.
And man, like imagine World War One happening. Didn't that happen during the Spanish flu or one of those big major disease pandemics? That'd be like a massive, like World War Three happening now during COVID, but COVID being way worse.
Yeah. Oh, man, it's
All
yeah,
right.
it's hard to, like, be alive today and not be cynical, you know what I mean? But
Yeah, I know. I seem to
at the
be
same
getting more
time,
cynical all the time.
yeah, at the same time, you got to keep reminding yourself that there's no other time in history you'd rather want to swap. You know what I mean? You wouldn't want to be living in 1700 right now with no toilets or
Hmm.
no McDonald's. You know?
Yeah, can't even read books if you're in the 1700s unless you're super rich.
Yeah, like the best time. This is the kind of I have man all the time is the best time to be alive is right now. But man, the fucking look out your window. There's so much shitty things going on. It seems, right? Every time I'm on this fucking computer, it's fucking, death and destruction. It's political nonsense. It's that. And if I go outside and go on my bike, I'm fine. Everybody's super nice. hi, how you doing? No problem. It's only when you
Yeah,
get into this.
and then most people, if you say like people out in the real world, if we're not on our phones and we're talking to each other, we probably like kind of mostly agree about this situation, like you and I have been. And I would guess, unless you're like way too far into your online political tribe, which definitely happens with some people.
Yeah. Do you know who Justin Amash is? Have you heard of that guy?
Sounds familiar. I don't remember who that is.
He was a congressman. He's an independent now, but he was a public figure. He was a congressman. Anyway, um, if I received any kind of light or a white pill, it was on his Twitter feed the other day because he has two family members that died in Israel due to this. They were at a grocery store or at a mosque or something like that, and a
Oh,
bomb came and blew
geez.
them up. What was interesting about his timeline afterwards, since he was a U.S. congressman, is you had everybody sending their condolences, and it was like everybody. It was weird, man. It was like Ilhan Homar sending her condolences, and then it was like Mike Cernovich sending his condolences, and then it was like AOC sending her condolences, and then it was just like left, right, and it was both sides sending the condolences to this guy, and it was kind of like,
Huh.
okay, so it was a sign of hope of like, wow, there is humanity here.
Yeah.
There was like 20 people, man. It was like Matt Gaetz, Michael Malice, all these people on the hardcore right, all these people on the hardcore left, both like sending the condolences to this guy. Um,
Oh,
yeah, it
that's
was kind of
awesome,
cool
man.
actually.
Yeah. Yeah, that gives me hope.
Yeah, it was kind of cool to see that. I wanted to take a screenshot of it, but
Cool.
yeah. Anyway,
Well, I think that's a perfect note to end it on, actually. For being
yeah,
cynical, let's end it with a note of positivity. All right. Yeah. Thanks everyone for watching our brilliant political analysis. Share your comments in the video. Don't be a dick because I won't respond to those, but I'll respond to the ones where you're not being a dick. And yeah, this is a very complex situation. I'm sure everyone's all sure of themselves about what's really going on, what the right decision is to do. But it's really fucked up. And above all else, I feel really bad for the Israeli and Palestinian people. And yeah, like you and I were saying, it's really difficult to not remain cynical in the modern world, but sometimes there can be little rays of hope, like the one you mentioned, like if a Republican politician, his family member dies, like you were saying, everyone from far righties to far lefties so, post their support. So that's really good to hear.
yeah, it was cool.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Thanks again for talking. And thanks everyone for watching. Share this everywhere. Smash the like button. Make sweet love to it. Molest it. Elbow drop it as long as you press it. And subscribe to the channel. Check out my Patreon page. Link is in the description. As always, click that bell to be notified when I come out with new videos. I think tomorrow I'm probably going to do another one. Actually, I'm going to start my series on James Lindsay's book called Race Marxism because I kind of hate read that book to do a video series on it, which I don't often do. But yeah, so look forward to that. And yeah, I'm going to put out another clip sometime soon too. Oh yeah, I think a clip from one of my Slavoj Žižek videos, so check that out. And yeah, thanks for talking, man. And we should talk again sometime soon. I know it's been a while, and maybe we could talk more regularly too. Because also, not mostly because it's just fun for us to talk, but also because it seems like that, like I was saying, Dusty might not be able to talk as much now with his new work schedule.
Yeah, man, I'm always down to chat. Yeah, I'm trying to stay out of the political. I try to
Yeah.
stay out of the culture war bullshit and just pay
Hmm.
attention to what's going on in the world. But yeah, I'm always in the culture war for some
Yeah.
stupid reason.
I've really been enjoying lately since I've rebranded my philosophy channel, or I mean my my YouTube channel to Philosophy Bro. Just focusing a lot more on philosophy because that interests me more than anything else.
Yeah, right on. But
Yeah.
yeah, thanks
All
for having
right.
me on,
Yeah.
man. And
Let's.
I can chat about anything. Yeah.
Sweet. Yeah. Let's try to figure out something to talk about sometime soon. Maybe we could talk about some sort of philosophical topic. Doesn't have to be anything academic or anything, but maybe we could think of something like that to discuss.
Yeah.
Or a book or something that we've both read, or we could both read one. Yeah, we'll figure it out.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Thanks again, man. Always fun
Yeah.
to talk. And thanks again, everyone. And adios until next time.